Now we're going to meet a nurse unit manager in this topic. She's going to explain to us what her role is like, how she got to be in that role, and any trials and tribulations associated with it.
My name is Christina Roberts. I'm the after hours manager at Auburn Hospital. I work the afternoon shift from Saturday to Tuesday. As I went through high school, it was never my intention to be a nurse. My mother was a nurse, and that just didn't seem to be where I wanted to head. I was far more interested in the Air Force and joining the Air Force to become a pilot. The Air Force weren't ready for that in the mid-1970s, so I decided to go nursing to fill in some time. I trained the old hospital-based way through Prince of Wales and Prince Henry hospitals, and as I went through the different sections, I quite liked it, but I never felt that this was my calling for life until I got to the emergency department at Prince of Wales, and I realised that this really could be a career that I enjoyed. Once I finished my training, we just did the 3 years, I did a few qualifications that probably don't even exist anymore, but then I went to Westmead Hospital. It was a brand new hospital then. The emergency department hadn't opened, but we were employed there for a month or so to set it up before it opened. After a couple of years in the department, I became a charge sister, and whilst that was exciting and fun for a while, it became quite taxing, and I decided that I was burnt out, and at 28 years of age I was having a midlife crisis and I needed a change. So I joined the police force. I went to Goulburn Academy and then came back to Parramatta, which is about 1 kilometre away from Westmead Hospital, just doing general duties, chasing baddies, chasing speeders, shoplifters, domestic violence, you name it. It happened at Parramatta. But I was torn between my two careers, so within a month or so I went back to Westmead as a registered nurse, just working part-time. I often worked an afternoon shift with the police and would go into Westmead Hospital and interview somebody from a car accident or a victim of a domestic violence assault, and they would tell me they needed somebody for night shift. So I would finish my shift at the police station, come back to the hospital, put a white gown over my uniform, lock my gun in the drug cupboard and start working as a nurse. And you'd be surprised how often I ran into people in the hospital that we'd been chasing in the street. As an after-hours manager, I never know what to expect from one day to the next. I explain my role as being that of a firefighter. I deal with the problems as they arise and move on to the next one. There's usually not any long-term planning in what I do. It's just one crisis after another. A bomb scare, needing to call theatres in for an emergency caesarean section, dealing with people that are coming in that are violent in the emergency department, dealing with a gunshot wound, for instance, that usually brings a crowd of onlookers and extra people who are putting the hospital staff at risk. I'm the one that makes the decisions, I'm the one that deals with the situation, and I'm the one that takes the blame when things go wrong. There's always the issues of money. You can't just have everything you want because you have to be thinking of budget restrictions. Sometimes that means rather than getting staff in, I have to move staff. Often they're not happy about being moved, and I feel like I'm somewhere between a mother and a sergeant major saying, please, 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 and if that doesn't work, I'm saying, well, now it's direction, not a request. And you'd be surprised how many things can go wrong in a hospital after hours when there is nobody else around. The kitchen floods, and there's no plumber to turn off the water. He thinks it might be an idea for the senior nurse manager in a suit and skirt and high heels to climb up on the bench to see if there's something blocking the drains. The switchboard goes down with monotonous regularity. That means that the nurses and doctors can't communicate with each other. If there's an emergency, nobody can call for help because there's nobody, the the phone's not working, the paging system's not working. So that becomes the after hours manager's problem. So we need to find solutions that make everybody happy, which usually doesn't make anybody happy. It's a compromise. One of the nicest things about being an after hours manager in a small hospital is a crisis happens, everybody works together. The worst situations bring out the best in all of your staff, from the doctors and the nurses, the security, switchboard operators, everybody. We're all part of a team that's aim is to get the patients stabilised and treated, or stabilised and treated and moved to a facility that can better manage it. Probably one of the best examples of that is when an elderly lady found another lady. We couldn't tell her age because she was burnt from head to foot at Rookwood Cemetery with burns. She didn't know what to do, so she put her in a car and brought her into the hospital. From the moment they arrived, everybody was involved, security, switchboard operators. We got her into the emergency room, doctors and nurses looking for places to put in cannulas. There was not much of her body left where a cannula could be placed. The airway is swelling up quickly, so she needs to have a tube put down her throat before that blocks, and she would just die of asphyxiation. While all of this is happening, somebody needs to be contacting relatives, contacting the police to contact relatives, contacting a hospital that is more in a better position to deal with such horrific injuries, organising a retrieval team to come and pick the patient up, and that usually falls to me. But it's wonderful while you're doing all of this to be watching your staff all working together, working hard. They're so used to each other, they're so used to working together, they don't often have to even speak to each other. Things just happen because they just know what each other needs. One of the greatest privileges of being a nurse is being there to support people when they're dealing with the worst thing that's ever happened to them in their lives. Sometimes it's easy to forget because we see this sort of thing all the time. We see people dying, we see babies born, and we think that this is just a part of our lives. But for the people that are coming into the hospital, it's the worst moment of their life. And for us to be able to help them through is a privilege. You feel a part of their world, even if it's just for a short period of time. Most people are very, very grateful for what you do, and you feel appreciated. Not always, but for the most part. And to be able to be there to support them, to help them, to make them feel, to help them navigate their way through the crisis is especially rewarding. In the olden days, they used to say nursing wasn't a job, it was a calling. And that's probably pretty right.